Hello people of the internet, my name is Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi, and I want to talk to you about a problem with Magic the Gathering Online today. And no, it's not the client or some sort of game-breaking bug, it's Rishadan Port. As some of you may know, I'm a big fan of Death and Taxes. I play it in Modern, I play it in Legacy, I even play it in Tiny Leaders and in Cube where I can. I'm just a big fan of the archetype. And as some of you may know by watching this video, you know I like to make YouTube content. Whether that's to entertain or to some extent educate, a lot of this content situates around the decks that I like Death and Taxes. So for the longest time I was going out to build the deck for Legacy on Magic the Gathering Online so that I can make content for you guys to see and I can practice my favourite deck so I can get better with it. The problem is, I can't do that. The reason I can't do that is one singular problem. Rishadan Port. Rishadan Port, in paper, currently sits at a TCG player average of $109.27. In real terms, you can buy a slightly beaten up playset from Magic Card Market for €260. And with the British economy struggling so badly at the moment, that works out to be £231.41. So that's not small change, but it's affordable in the grand scheme of things, especially in the grand scheme of Legacy. The deck isn't actually that expensive. Rishadan Ports make up the most expensive part of the deck. Now, on Magic the Gathering Online we have a slightly different story. For those of you who don't know, cards on Magic the Gathering Online are cheaper, a lot cheaper. For example, on Underground Sea, a reserved list staple Legacy dual land is approximately $342 at this point in time in paper. However, on Magic the Gathering Online, it's only $16. This is because the reserved list, which is a list of cards Wizards of the Coast have vowed never to reprint again in paper as a way to ensure collectors buy into the product back when Magic was still relatively new, doesn't count online, so they can reprint whatever they want. About 2 years ago, Wizards of the Coast reprinted Dual Lands and Power 9 and other Eternal staples on a set called Vintage Masters, which helped to reinvigorate both Legacy and Vintage Online. So, how about Rishadan Port on Magic the Gathering Online? A playset will cost you a total of $928.72, or in English pounds, that's £826.60. Let that sink in for a moment. The online price of the deck is only $1,226.51. This means that ports make up just over 75% of the deck's price tag online, which is obscene, let's be honest. For the cost of one playset of Rishadan Port, you can pretty much buy all of Miracles and all of Grixis Delver individually too, so that's 8 copies of Force of Will. That just doesn't make any sense. Rishadan Port is so expensive right now that it costs approximately 2.5 times the price of a Black Lotus. Black Lotus is the next dearest card on MTGO. Rishadan Port's price is just disgusting. Aside from the selfish aspect of me wanting to reprint Rishadan Port so I can actually play Death and Taxes, what's the actual problem? Well, Legacy, and to an even greater extent Vintage, are having a hard time at the moment. For those of you that don't know, Starting Games are dropping the vast majority of their larger Legacy events and the coverage of them. As usual, this has been seen as a death knell for the format by anyone and everyone who doesn't actually play it. For those of us invested and in love with it, it's just your typical weekly conversation about the death of Legacy. And I mean the death of Legacy in inverted commas. However, as much as I spew anecdotes for the format growing in my local community and online, we have to face facts. The very existence of the reserve list means that Legacy cannot really grow in the same way that Modern Standard or any new formats such as like this Frontier thing might do one day. The card availability just isn't there, and this means that prices become more and more prohibitively expensive for those wanting to get involved. This is where Magic the Gathering Online comes in. It's a saviour of sorts. While Paper Legacy will never truly die, solely due to the fanaticism of its fans, MTGO allows us to tide us over between events. It allows us to practice our decks. It allows us to buy into other parts of the meta for so cheap by comparison to real paper Magic, and allows us to play a lot more Legacy than we normally would. I genuinely believe, because of the lack of a reserve list and the open honesty of Wizards willing to reprint dual lands, that MTGO is the saviour of the format. It's how the format will grow and develop in the future, and it's key to its survival. However, it isn't clear how on board Wizards of the Coasts are with making Modo a platform for Legacy and Eternal formats to grow. Rishadan Port is pretty much the example of this. How have they let this card get so unobtainably expensive to the fact point that it warps the format? Now, Wizards of the Coast claim they do not acknowledge the secondary market. Sure, fine. Let's just for argument's sake accept that they don't. They do, however, take note of card availability and fan demand. How they let a singular land that features a 4 in format pillars like Death and Taxes and lands get so prohibitively expensive. Wizards of the Coast have to manage what they call reprint equity. They can't just print the best cards all the time. Each chase fair and each in-demand staple only has a certain amount of pull or a certain amount of weight that it can be used to pull in the crowds to buy new product. Saffron Olive goes into great detail about this in an article I will link to in the description below. So definitely check that out if you want to understand the reprint equity in a more detailed way that I'm not going to go into in this video. The issue is that Wizards of the Coast appear to not have managed this equity with Port in particular, to the extent that they have significantly skewed the online meta to not represent that of the paper one. This isn't like Pauper, where card legality can differ. This is just where one seemingly random staple has been allowed to get to an obscene price by going unprinted for so long, and the supply has dried up. When a card reaches 2.5 times dearer than any other card on Modo, then we know there's definitely a problem. It doesn't show much care, attention, or affection for the older formats from Wizards of the Coast. So I've ranted a little bit or moaned a little bit about this. So what is the solution? Well, much like the reserve list, the solution is really simple. With the reserve list, you just abolish it, and with Rishadan Port, you just print it. However, with both those answers, it's not the answer itself that's complicated, it's the implementation of the choice that you make. In the last year, Wizards could have reprinted Port in Eternal Masters, Conspiracy 2, or Commander, to avoid putting it through Standard or Modern. For the most part, the majority of those sets would have hardly helped anything. Conspiracy 2 is still missing from MTGO entirely, which means that Death and Taxes actually currently look nothing like its paper versions, with no Recruit of the Guard and no Sanctum Prelate, but that's a whole different discussion. And the same for Commander, with last year's cards being featured in special prize boosters that came from the Legendary Cube at the time. So the obvious place to have been put this card is Eternal Masters, which when it wasn't reprinted, caused the card to spike by $40 to $50. Reports have been upwards of $90 since Star blocks, so they've always been a problem that Wizards should have been aware of. So why wasn't it in Vintage Masters 2 years ago? I'm unsure. Perhaps they were saving it for the next Vintage Masters or for Eternal Masters 2. It does seem like a very big pull chase for it, especially with its current price. Either way, the format has been left to warp to be unrepresentative of the paper one because of it. Personally, if I weren't wanting to crash the price of the paper card too much, I'd print it in an online-only set. Either create a pre-constructed deck, much like they've done before to get cards like Caracas' price down, or they could just print it in Vintage Masters 2, which I'm hoping they'll announce soon. Either way, Wizards have to address this issue and not let this sort of thing happen again if they want formats like Legacy and Vintage to at least survive in some capacity. I don't believe Wizards are trying to kill off older formats. I just really like it if they tried a little bit harder to look after them. Like, you know, like an elderly relative that you put in a care home. Sometimes you've got to visit them and pamper them and just help them a little bit by reprinting Rishadan Port. That analogy didn't really hold up like I thought it would. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry it's so serious. I'm normally a lot more silly and whimsical than this, but it's something that I actually genuinely care about because it's affecting me in a format that I love. If you have an opinion on the matter, you think I'm talking absolute codswallop, or just want to have a chat, then drop me a comment in the comment section and don't forget to subscribe for more content in future. And if you want to support the channel, please share my videos on your local Facebook groups and that sort of thing. Getting some exposure to the channel is the one thing that I would ask for. Thanks for watching, click the subscribe button, I'll see you later. I don't know why I'm doing that, just awkwardly trying to sign off.